All right, welcome back. God loves dirty jokes. Book reading 18. Holy cow. Chapter 37 today. I hope you had a good week. I had kind of a weird week. I thought that I could not figure out what was kind of bugging me most of the week. It wasn't work related, even though work was busy. Work was busy, but good busy. So, and then I watched Kim at Intuitive View's video, and she was saying she thought that the energy this week felt a little funky. And I don't know if I always buy into that or not. You know what I'm saying? Like that people who are sensitives or empaths can feel the global energy in this very precise way and pinpoint what's going on. However, I have to acknowledge that leading up to Easter and then that week after Easter, like that was a for me it was a palpable lift, and it really felt different to me than anything in a while, in a very positive way. And this week felt like there was like more of a drag feeling. It could also be because it snowed here in Buffalo after was it Tuesday or Wednesday? Like after we were up to 80 degrees a couple weeks ago, and then it snowed, and then it melted, and now like today it's like 60, 65. I'm gonna go for a bike ride after this. It's weird. This is the weird time of year here always. But yeah, I felt like this week was a little funny. And for Kim at Intuitive View, she was pinning it on the Chauvin trial, and also the stuff with Navalny in Russia. And it could well be, we really don't know how strong that sort of global awareness is. We don't really exactly know. But the Chauvin trial was a huge big deal, and probably almost everybody in the country was aware of it in some way, and probably globally too. And it probably will end up being a pivotal moment historically somehow. And I do think that he was guilty, and the video is horrifying. And also, when I see pictures of him, I see someone deeply troubled. That's what I see in a very obvious way. And I don't mean to elicit sympathy for him, but it's weird when I looked at the pictures of him, and just something in his eyes just told me this guy, he's got problems. And I don't know if it's worth diving into them, or if we'll ever know, or maybe it just doesn't matter because he snuffed another man's existence in such a cruel way. But justice was served. Okay, I feel that strongly. Justice was served. And then with Navalny, you have a different kind of justice, and also like with global implications, because Navalny is so brave, and he is, I would say, obsessively determined to see Putin be toppled. So much so that he is willing to make literally the ultimate sacrifice if he has to. And again, in terms of Kim's reading this week, she said that she felt that it was going to be one of two ways, that Navalny would either die as a result of his stand against Putin, which is a strong possibility because Putin is the worst, and they are surely torturing him in some fashion, even if it's poisoning his food, or whatever other awful things they can come up with, because the Putin is truly awful. Or the other possibility Kim saw was that he survives and he becomes like a Nelson Mandela like figure, where he leads Russia. He becomes the president. So I guess we just don't know. There is a very fatalistic aspect to it. There is a seemingly like spiritual plan, like there's something playing out that has to happen. It is very strange, the world we live in sometimes, where it seems like fate is so strong, even though we have free will. It can get confusing sometimes as to what's what, like what's just gonna happen no matter what you do, and how much can we affect with our choices in daily life. And we can affect a lot, and certainly someone like Putin, who is really like, his energy just must be just like a swamp of toxic waste. With a person like that, he's been making choices his whole life that are going to lead him to a bad end. I mean, I think there's a high possibility that his own people are going to take him out. And I do feel like many of the psychics feel that it could happen this year or next year at the latest, because of multiple pressures, including economic pressure on Russia, and the fact that without 45 in office, he doesn't have his little puppet to help him carry out his global misinformation and destabilization campaign of the Western democracies. That is over. Well, it's not over, but it has peaked, and they have failed. And with Biden in office, we can expect, in my opinion, a gradual restoration of the values of democracy in our country and globally. That's really how I feel. So, enough pontification on that. Let's get back to the book, right? Chapter 37 is called Back to the Farm, and it takes place in Cleveland, Ohio. The venue, there's a venue that I used to play called the Barking Spider Tavern. Barking Spider is a joke about that they told me one time. The first owner told me that, well, maybe this is even in the book. Oh yeah, it is. So I won't waste it. But I used to play Barking Spider. I played there probably 15 years, pretty consistently, a few times a year. And unfortunately, since the book has come out, they've closed. Yeah, they were open a really long time. They were a hip little venue, but it got too hard a little bit before COVID, and so unfortunately that's over. But I am still in touch with the second owner, who is the daughter of the original owner. Anyway, enough of that. Let's get into this. Or enough of this. Let's get into that. No, let's get into this. Sorry. Coffee. Okay. The Barking Spider Tavern. Barking Spider is my favorite live music venue in Cleveland. The bar name is a fart joke. When you pass gas in mixed company but don't want to own up, you blame it on the barking spider in the corner. Their logo is of a fat bearded guy in a fisherman's cap and vest, smoking a pipe, leaning back on a chair to let one rip. And actually, I have a Barking Spider sweatshirt. Thank God I have one, and got one before they closed. So I wear that a lot. The Intimate Pub was built into an old coach house on the Case Western University campus. The walls and ceiling are finished hardwood. The lights are kept low. A candle warms each table. A wood-burning stove keeps it toasty in winter, and in summer, its rows of large bay doors open on opposing sides, leading to two small patios with picnic tables under shady trees. Framed portraits and paintings fill the wall behind the bar. Singer-songwriters have made it a staple since it opened in 1986, plus an eclectic mix of jazz, folk, blues, country, and spoken word. It is meant as a listening room in a world that seems to keep getting louder. Like Buffalo Music Club Nietzsche's, which is down the block from me, which it reminds me of, there's a bohemian vibe that defies any strict time period. Both venues host live music 7 nights a week. Nietzsche's has been closed since COVID started, but I hope they will reopen soon. I miss it. The crowd is eclectic, drawing a mix of college students, artists, and musicians, academics, retirees, and professionals of varying backgrounds and ages. From Buffalo, Cleveland is a straight southwestern run along Lake Erie on Interstate 90, passing through Pennsylvania. It takes 3 hours to drive there. I go 2 or 3 times a year. The Spider is a challenging venue because the tables are just a few feet from the stage and there's little reverberation with the hardwood. Your performance is virtually naked. I usually appear as a soloist, so I'm under the magnifying glass. Sometimes it feels like survival, or like I'm a magician with only so many tricks up his sleeves. When my head's on straight, and I've had a few beers to relax, I seem to know what songs to string together to maintain interest for the 90-minute first set, and my repartee flows. It's easy to lose the room if I'm a bit off. Audiences tune out quickly when things aren't quite right, and I don't blame them. You earn every house you keep. Buffalo and Cleveland are cousins in professional sports frustration and enthusiastic beer consumption, where downtown urban liberalism coexists with a conservative suburban ring. Neither has won a sports championship in the modern era, though that changed since the book was written because the Cleveland Cavaliers won the NBA championship. And each seems to have suffered from long-term Rust Belt poor self-esteem, which manifests as defeatist humility. Both cities are charming to me. Jenna Jardine, or Jardine, not sure. Jenna Jardine has run the Barking Spider since her dad Martin died of throat cancer in early 2011. Jenna and Martin have the same attractive, symmetrical face and smile. When I first met her, I tried not to stare. She looked so much like him. I didn't really know Martin beyond calling him for bookings and our brief conversations between my sets, but I liked him. He seemed like a holdover from another more fluid American era where you could wander a few adult years after school without fearing permanent unemployment, a time before the corporatization of most of our cherished cultural institutions and popular performers, though perhaps I'm nostalgic for an era I didn't see. Martin grew up in Cleveland Heights, but one of his favorite places was his uncle's farm outside of Columbus, Ohio. Their family bred boxers. Martin visited most summers and holidays as a child and young man. It matched his mellow, rootsy vibe. Jenna says Martin, her dad, was a traveler and philosopher. He loved to talk, debate, and meet people from other places. When he finished high school, he wanted to see the world, but his father convinced him to get a college education first. After graduation, Martin's dad gave him some money to travel for a year. His favorite destinations were Greece, Morocco, Afghanistan, and Paraguay, which he returned to over the years. He made friends in Morocco who eventually moved to Cleveland. He knew how to rough it abroad, enduring hunger, illness, and bedbugs in humble accommodations in exchange for mind-expanding experiences. When Martin returned to Cleveland, his nomadic tales mesmerized Jenna's mom, Nancy, and they globetrotted together for months after. Jenna's sister, Shisha, was conceived when they were in India. 4 years later, Jenna was conceived in Morocco. After Jenna's birthday, the family settled in Cleveland and their travels halted for a while. Martin and Nancy divorced when Jenna was 4. Okay, coffee break, sorry. Got the family mug today, so it's a old picture of my dad, me on the far left, and my grandpa, and then my brother Steve over here on the end. This picture's like 20, oh shit, maybe 30 years old. I had long hair. It's not a mullet, it's long hair. And then, this is a picture of me when I was a kid. And what's on the other side? This is a picture of my brother and my grandfather when my brother was a kid. Holy cow. Anyway. Tangents. Martin's buddy, Bruce, a real estate whiz, bought the Barking Spider in 1986, and their lifetime arrangement was for Martin to run it. As a teen and young woman, Jenna ran errands for Martin and learned the ropes. Sadly, with Martin gone, she has no one to help her in the same role, which makes it tough to take time away from the bar. Jenna says the bar is family to her, for better and worse. When people are disrespectful in her dad's place, she struggles not to take it personally. Dealing with loud, sloppy drunks must be a challenge. Jenna is the flame to Martin's coolness, which is probably necessary for a young, attractive bar owner on her own. She is strong, but also sweet. But you want to hear about ghost stuff. So let's go. When Jenna was a freshman in high school, she and her mom lived on the third floor of a house on Overlook Road in Cleveland Heights. Jenna's mom, Nancy's bedroom was at the end of a long hallway off the kitchenette and adjacent to a large unfinished part of the attic, which could have been made into another room. Often the French doors and windows in Nancy's room would rattle inexplicably, making it difficult for them to sleep. Nancy habitually placed spare change on her bedroom dresser. Sometimes when they were in the living room or kitchen, they would hear coins sliding across its top and onto the hardwood floor. Clink, clink, clink. She'd walk in to find a pile of pennies on the floor. The penny ghost is at it again, they said. Jenna decided to move into the unfinished area of the apartment because it was a larger space, but soon discovered this was where the energy was most concentrated. One evening, she came home to find an old 7-inch filleting knife in an odd leather sheath on her bed. It didn't belong to them. Up until that point, they'd felt that the presence was more of an annoyance than a threat, but the knife crossed a line. Yeah. Jenna immediately moved out of the unfinished space, and they moved away the next month. Years later, she ended up at a party on the second floor of the same house, and the current tenants also had strange stories and sensed bad energy. Now, I do think that that energy can be cleared from most spaces by, a spiritual, intuitive, or even someone who's good at saging. I saged a place for a friend once, and it seemed to work pretty good. And I'm not like sage expert. My mom really kind of turned me on to that practice. It's fun to sage every once in a while. Just keep the windows open because you don't want to suck too much of that air in because it is still smoke. Excuse me. Jenna went away to college at the University of Delaware in Newark, Delaware. The city used to be named Newark and was changed at some point to a single word, but is still pronounced Newark. Newark. Now I get it. Mispronunciation of Newark, as if it is the city in New Jersey, perpetually pisses off the locals. Newark. Right, okay. Jenna and 3 other young women lived in a Civil War era house at the corner of Amstel Avenue and Elkton Road, which used to house soldiers. Elkton Road leads into Elkton, Maryland, at the edge of the Mason-Dixon line. From her window, Jenna witnessed her first and only Ku Klux Klan rally down the street. Happily, it was poorly attended. Given its age, the whole house was on one electrical circuit. If they ran 2 appliances at once, it would blow out. Oh my God, that's crazy. Jenna said that the home was so old, she always felt a breeze through the cracks in the window seams, and as a college squat, it wasn't well maintained by the landlord. The house had 2 bedrooms on each floor. Jenna lived downstairs and shared a connected bathroom with Mary Ann. Jenna was student teaching in the morning and bartending at night, doing lessons plans after work at 1 a.m. before getting up at 6 for school. She often got only 3 hours of sleep and would pass out on her bed. Then she started waking up in weird places around the apartment. One morning, she found herself in the living room couch with her legs over its side and her head almost on the floor, not a position in which one would normally or comfortably fall asleep. As she sometimes sleepwalked when stressed and sleep deprived, Jenna thought that might be how she got there, but on a different morning, she woke up on a different couch in a similar position. Jenna's bedroom light often flickered crazily, and when she slept, she sometimes felt a presence leaning over her bed, as did Mary Ann. Jenna woke up many times from a sound sleep as if someone was staring curiously at her face. Jenna saw the presence of a thin shadow, and she could almost see the whiteness of his eyes. When she'd awake startled, the shadow would get spooked and dart into a corner, then shyly shrink down and disappear. Mary Ann wasn't remotely comfortable with the presence and woke up screaming in the middle of the night when he'd get close to her face. Yeah, don't blame her. Was I talking like this for a while? Is this good? Sorry. After waking up splayed on the couch a few times, Jenna conducted an experiment. She began to lock her bedroom door and the adjoining bathroom door before bed. Sleepwalkers are less likely to unlock doors, especially deadbolts. A few days into the experiment, she woke up in the middle of the night with someone promenading her in circles around the bedroom, like at a country dance. Her head had been down until she woke up on her feet. Her elbow was pointed out like someone was looped in it, and she felt like she was having a conversation. I prefer this stroll to being upside down on a couch, she thought. She found the presence more curious than creepy. Her sense was that he was a southern gentleman in his mid-20s, a Civil War soldier just a few years older than her. Eventually, as she was leaning on the ghost, he couldn't carry her anymore, and she flopped to the floor. You can't make it up, folks. I'm still, having issues with distance. Okay. She didn't feel the soldier was perverted, just curious about her and Marianne. Maybe he lost a love or died too young to have one. He seemed to crave companionship. Other than the promenade, all he did was stare at their faces, watching pretty girls sleep. She said he was a very presence, very felt. Jenna and the girls lived in the house for a year. Some fraternity guys moved in after they left. Jenna didn't tell them about the ghosts, but one night they visited her while she was bartending. Jenna, did you ever notice anything in the bedroom? The light kind of flickers like crazy. Sometimes I feel like somebody's in there with me and he hangs out in the corner of the room. So this is one of the new frat guys. This seemed like confirmation of her experiences by an outside party. 8 years ago, after the death of her grandfather, Jenna and her mom visited her grandmother in Necedah, Wisconsin. Neccedah, Necedah, Wisconsin. Sorry. Okay, let me start that paragraph again. 8 years ago, after the death of her grandfather, Jenna and her mom visited her grandmother in Wisconsin. Jenna's grandmother has also since passed. Jenna's grandmother was very religious. She had a plethora of angel figurines and Jesus portraits in her home, plus a 10-foot cross with Jesus on it in her front yard. Whoa. One afternoon, Jenna took a nap in her grandfather's room, which is where he preferred to nap. She felt that her sister was sleeping next to her, though no one was there. The presence woke her. She felt compelled to check on her grandmother and found that she was having a massive asthma attack. Jenna gave her some coffee to help calm her. Jenna and her mom were sure it had been her grandfather, prompting her to wake and aid his wife. Jenna's mom had also previously felt her dad's presence in the room, and she believes in an afterlife based partly on physics. Energy can't die; it can only change form. When Jenna's father Martin was at the end of his life, he went into hospice. Given his globetrotting on the first day Martin was there, he immediately picked up on the accent of a preacher who visited him. "Kenya?" he asked. The preacher was pleasantly surprised, and they established a quick rapport. The last days of Martin's life were difficult for him and the family. His eyes were limp and he was barely conscious, but just before he died, they popped open. He had a huge smile on his face and his eyes lit up. He was seemingly looking through the ceiling. He exclaimed, "Oh, wow, the farm." It was the farm he'd grown up on outside Columbus, Ohio. That's where they were waiting for him. His happy place is where he was received. Then he passed, and all the light in him went out, instantly leaving the gray, empty shell of his body. When Jenna told her uncle about the farm, he got tears in his eyes. This is in parentheses. My drummer friend Ray, remember Ray from a couple chapters back, said that his dad described the passing of Ray's mom just like Jenna described Martin's death. She was illuminated until the moment she died, and then in the space of a finger snap, the light exited her body. This implies our souls may be pure light, slivers of God like the sun. As light is hope, we spark in the darkness. End of parentheses. And of course, since I wrote this, now you hear more and more that really spirit is light. This massive pure white light, and of course we invoke the white light for protection, and it only makes sense. The sun is the thing that gives life to everything, and it requires the shadow in order for it to differentiate itself from everything else. So it's a life of light and shadow of necessity. There's also a bonus paragraph in parentheses. Sci-fi sci-fi bonus thought. What if the sun is a massive collection of souls nurturing all life here for billions of years, or the repository from which we came? Can we hang out there once we cross over? What would it feel like to be enveloped by hundreds of billions or trillions of pure loving essences, like radiating as a sun? Ooh, could be good. That's the end of the parentheses. Before Martin's illness, when he was having an especially good time at the Spider, he liked to grab his camera and take photos of everything and everyone. On evenings when there's a happy energy in the bar and her smartphone is sitting behind the bar, Jenna will walk by to discover it's been turned on and shifted to the photo or video mode. If she turns the phone off, it turns itself back on in that position. This has happened with multiple phones she's owned. Dad saying hello. Jenna doesn't feel Martin's presence all of the time. She figures he hangs out in other places he loved, like the traveler he was. This matches my understanding of spirit life. Sometimes we call for them, but they're otherwise engaged, like, say, deceased loved ones or spirit guides. Again, praying and talking to spirits is not a wish fulfillment service, and the results aren't always instantaneous. Jenna says that the barking spider is not a huge moneymaker, but it is self-sustaining. She feels she's not allowed to be greedy, but when she really needs something, it always comes through. Yeah, I can relate to that too. For example, 6 or 7 years ago, when she said aloud, "I really need a new dresser," her modest, nearly inadvertent wish was heard. The next day, another bartender at the Spider spontaneously offered one because she was moving. The universe delivered the message, or maybe just one helpful spirit. So it's like manifestation, as we always talk about. We discussed this idea further. I said that many of my hopes or prayers are thought but not verbalized, believing there's no significant distinction in terms of result. And that's only grown stronger. Excuse me, I'm very itchy today. So that's only grown stronger as time has passed, that I think of thoughts and prayers as almost the same thing. They're just energy out into the universe. Oh, by the way, I'm really tangenting, which is what I do. As you know, the Pope Francis said he wants May to be the prayer month for ending COVID. So I am going to try. Well, no, I'm not going to try. I'm going to do. And I'm going to try not to forget, but I'm going to not forget because I'm telling myself not to. I'm going to pray every day in May, but starting now, for humanity to win out over COVID. So I encourage you to join me and the Pope. I like this Pope because I think he's a humanitarian at heart, and it's less about the rituals and the doctrines than it is about good intentions. And that's, to me, the heart of religion, spiritual life, outside of any other book about spirit or instructions about how to live. Just good intentions, doing well, golden rule, etc. Okay, yes, sorry, typical tangent. My mom says she's been doing the COVID prayer every day, praying for it to end anyway. So I said I invited her and my brother Steve to join me in May, and because it's kind of an experiment too. Let's see if we can really move the needle. So join me. Oh, I mean, really, join me if you want to. Join us if you want to. Okay. So again, we discussed this idea further. I said that many of my prayers or hopes are thought, but not verbalized, believing there's no significant distinction in terms of result. Jenna feels that you have to say what you need out loud to get help. I don't know whether a sound wave is stronger than the energy of a thought, but the last few days I've been testing her verbal method. We'll see what happens. And some of the psychics do say that they think verbal is stronger than thought, but I don't know. During one of my gigs at the Spider last year, when I only knew the outline of Jenna's experiences, I spontaneously asked the audience if anyone had ever had an experience with spirits. The room dropped to an immediate hush. It took me off guard, but I found it interesting. I didn't know if the silence reflected fear, reverence, curiosity, or a mix. Maybe the audience was surprised that I spoke casually about something that many people think of as private and intimate. It seems the more openly I discuss it, the more comfortable and certain I become. It doesn't embarrass me. I also discover that more people in my circle of friends and acquaintances have had experiences than I ever expected. No one in the audience raised a hand or voice to acknowledge a supernatural experience, but everyone listened carefully as I briefly explained that I'd had many inspiring encounters. Anybody could have one. Absolutely true. I was writing a book about it, and I was convinced there's more than this life, which I am. I mentioned that Jenna had had experiences too without getting specific. She smiled and waved from the bar. The energy of the performance was different after that, more dialed in. I haven't mentioned the book again in subsequent performances so as not to turn it into a cheap gimmick, but I'll surely have copies of the book with me the next time I'm there this fall. And yes, I did. I ended up bringing the book to Barking Spider and selling a few there, and also to a few of the Cleveland bookstores as well. So that's the end of chapter 27, Back to the Farm. Ghost experiences, spirit experiences in Cleveland. Thanks for listening. As always, thanks for tuning in. I'll be back again soon. Maybe we'll see how the week goes. Maybe a tangents video this week. I wrote a few things down maybe to talk about. We'll just see how it goes. And if not, or even if so, I'll see you for chapter 38 and probably 39 and maybe 40. How long is this? All in one in the next reading. So thanks for hanging out with me, for lending me your ears and your minds and your time. Okay? So be well. Enjoy spring. Ugh, time to get outside. Okay, bye.